The sound of metal tearing apart is something you feel in your teeth before you hear it. 70 miles an hour on a snowy pass in the Adirondacks, and suddenly the world tilted. My steering wheel went dead in my hands. The front left corner of my car dropped, grinding against the asphalt with a scream that drowned out my own thoughts. I spun. The guardrail rushed toward me, a flash of gray steel against white snow, and then silence. Absolute ringing silence. I was alive. My phone chimed from the passenger seat, the screen lighting up the dark interior. One text message. From my sister Madison. Are you there yet? And in that moment, staring at the shattered glass and the steam rising from the hood, I knew. This wasn't an accident. It was a scheduled execution. Before I tell you what I did with the blood still drying on my forehead, drop a comment. Where are you watching from right now, and have you ever felt like the black sheep of your family? I want to know who is standing with me today. I didn't scream. I didn't call 911. I clawed my way out of the wreckage, the cold air biting into the gash on my forehead. My name is Jessica, I am 32 years old, and for the last 5 years I have been dead to my family. Today they tried to make it literal. But they made one mistake. They forgot that when you force someone to survive on their own for half a decade, you don't break them. You forge them. I reached back into the twisted metal of the cabin. I didn't reach for my purse or my coat. I reached for the small black box mounted behind the rearview mirror. The interior dashcam. I yanked the SD card free, the plastic cool and hard against my bloody fingers. It was the only weapon I needed. I didn't wait for a tow truck. I didn't wait for the police. I walked to the edge of the road, flagged down a passing snowplow, and told the driver to take me to the gates of Blackwood Manor. He looked at the blood soaking my collar and asked if I needed a hospital. I told him I had an appointment I couldn't miss. The manor loomed out of the snow like a mausoleum, isolated and silent. The Wi-Fi here was internal, a closed loop. No cell signal could reach the outside world from the library. It was the perfect place for a private reading. The perfect place to bury a secret. I walked through the unlocked front doors, my boots leaving a trail of red slush on the pristine marble foyer. I could hear them in the library. The clink of crystal. The low murmur of voices. They were mourning me. Or rather, they were celebrating the efficiency of my removal. I didn't knock. I kicked the heavy oak doors open with enough force to crack the wood. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Inside, the tableau was perfect. My mother, Cynthia, was dabbing dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. My father, Robert, was pouring brandy, his face flushed with the anticipation of money. Uncle Douglas sat by the fire looking bored. And Madison, my beautiful golden sister Madison, was holding a glass of champagne. When she saw me, the glass didn't just fall. It slipped from her fingers as if gravity had suddenly doubled. It shattered on the hardwood, shards exploding outward. Jessica. Robert whispered, his face draining of color. But, the roads. I didn't say a word. I walked to the center of the room, the blood on my face drying into a mask of war. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the tiny SD card and threw it onto the mahogany table. It hit the wood with a sharp clack that echoed louder than any scream. You look like you've seen a ghost, Madison, I said. My voice was raspy, smelling of smoke and iron. Check your phone. I think you're waiting for a reply. Madison was trembling. Not a delicate shiver, but a full-body vibration of terror. She looked at the phone sitting face up on the table next to my SD card. The screen was still lit with her text message. Chi Den Chua? You sent that at 10:42, I said, pointing a bloody finger at her. The exact minute my will disintegrated. You weren't asking if I had arrived. You were asking if I was dead. Jessica, you're hysterical, Cynthia snapped, finding her voice first. She stood up, smoothing her skirt, instinctively moving to block Madison from my view. You've obviously been in an accident. I'm in shock. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense, Mother. And that's what terrifies you. I looked at Madison. I really looked at her. She was 29, polished to perfection, wearing pearls that cost more than my car. But in her eyes, I didn't see a mastermind. I didn't see a cold-blooded killer. I saw a child who had done her chores and was terrified she hadn't done them right. And that was the horror of it. That was the banality of evil. Madison wasn't born a monster. She was manufactured. For 30 years, Cynthia and Robert had pruned her empathy like a gardener pruning a hedge. They had taught her that family wasn't about love. It was about image. They had taught her that I wasn't her sister. I was a weed choking her sunlight. She hadn't loosened those lug nuts because she hated me. She had done it because it was expected of her. It was just another item on the Blackwood to-do list. Call the caterers, polish the silver, eliminate Jessica. I remember when we were kids, I said, my voice dropping low. You used to cry when you stepped on a bug, Madison. Now look at you. You tried to murder your sister, and the only thing you're worried about is that you missed. Shut up. Madison shrieked, her composure shattering. You always ruin everything. Grandfather left everything to us. You weren't supposed to be here. I know, I said. But I am. And I brought show and tell. Cynthia didn't gasp. She didn't rush to check my wounds or ask if I needed an ambulance. She stiffened, her eyes narrowing into slits of pure calculation. She looked at Madison, then at me, and made a choice. She chose the lie. You really are pathetic, Jessica, she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It was flat, factual, the tone one uses to discipline a toddler who has spilled juice on a rug. You drove off the road on purpose. You staged this entire scene because you couldn't stand that we were moving on without you. You couldn't stand that grandfather left the company to people who actually care about this family. She stepped over the shattered glass of Madison's champagne flute, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Look at you, she continued, gesturing vaguely at my blood-soaked coat. You're bleeding on the carpet. You're hysterical. You're unstable. You need a psychiatric hold, not a seat at this table. Robert joined the chorus, eager to please the conductor. He poured himself another brandy, his hands shaking just enough to betray him. Your mother is right, Jess. You've always been dramatic. Crashing your car just to interrupt a private family moment? It's sick. I stood there listening to them rewrite reality in real time. It was fascinating in a clinical way. They were trapped in a snowbound manor with no cell service, facing a victim who had walked out of a grave, and their first instinct wasn't fear. It was gaslighting. They truly believed that if they denied the truth with enough confidence, the truth would simply cease to exist. Uncle Douglas sighed, the sound of a man bored by the theatrics of amateurs. He set his glass down on the mantelpiece and turned to me. The SD card is inadmissible, Jessica, he said, his voice smooth and cold. Chain of custody is broken. You could have doctored that footage in the last hour. No court will touch it. And since this is private property, you are currently trespassing. He walked toward the table where the tiny black square of plastic lay. He moved with the arrogance of a man who has spent 40 years burying problems with money. I'll take that, Douglas said, reaching for the card. And then Robert will escort you to your car. Or what's left of it. He thought I was there to argue. He thought I was there to beg for my life or my inheritance. He didn't realize that I wasn't the plaintiff in this scenario. I was the executioner. As his hand hovered over the evidence, I didn't flinch. I didn't grab it back. I just smiled. Go ahead, Douglas, I said. Touch it. But before you do, you might want to see what else is on there. Because I didn't just record the road. I recorded the interior. I stepped past him, moving toward the massive smart TV mounted above the fireplace. You think you're untouchable because the snow has buried the roads, I said, plugging the SD card reader into the side of the screen. You think you're safe because there's no signal. But you forgot one thing about this house, Mother. I picked up the remote. The Wi-Fi is excellent. I didn't explain how the interior dashcam worked. I didn't explain that it had a parking mode, motion sensors, or a high-gain microphone designed to record interactions with passengers. I just plugged the reader into the USB port on the side of the 60-inch screen. The interface popped up instantly. I clicked the file stamped 10:38 a.m. The sound filled the library, amplified by the surround sound speakers my father had installed to impress his golf buddies. It started with a metallic rasp, the distinct grinding noise of a lug wrench turning against resistance. Scritch. Like. Madison gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Then came the voice. It wasn't the terrified whisper of a girl forced to do a chore. It was the annoyed, impatient tone of someone inconvenienced by the cold. It's done, the voice on the recording said. It was Madison. Crystal clear. I loosened all 5 on the front left. She won't make the curve at the pass. Then a second voice crackled through the recording, distorted slightly by the speakerphone but unmistakable. My mother's voice. Good. Wipe the wrench and come inside. I don't want the neighbors seeing you. The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavier than the snow piling up against the windows. I looked at Cynthia. She wasn't crying anymore. She was staring at the television screen as if it were a portal to hell. The mask of the grieving mother had slipped, revealing the cold calculation underneath. She had directed my execution from her kitchen island while drinking her morning coffee. That's manipulated, Robert stammered, looking between his wife and the screen. That's AI. You faked it. It's a time-stamped, encrypted file, Dad, I said, leaning against the mantel. And it's already been uploaded to 3 different cloud servers. But you don't have to take my word for it. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I didn't dial. I just typed a single character. Why? I sent the unedited file to the state police 45 minutes ago, I said. They were just waiting for me to confirm I was inside. Before Douglas could move, before Madison could run, the library doors didn't just open, they exploded inward. 6 state troopers in tactical gear flooded the room, snow melting into the blood on the floor. It was chaos, disciplined, efficient chaos. No questions, just orders. Madison Blackwood. Cynthia Blackwood. Hands where we can see them. Madison screamed as she was cuffed, glass crunching under boots. Cynthia didn't resist. For the first time she looked small, not the matriarch of Blackwood Manor, just a criminal in Kashmir. You ungrateful bitch, she spat at me. I gave you life. And today, I replied, you tried to take it back. They were dragged into the snow, blue lights flashing through the storm. I had survived. I had won. I turned to leave, then froze. Leaving so soon, Jessica? Uncle Douglas stood calmly by the fireplace, brandy in hand. No cuffs. No concern. He's involved, I told the trooper. He engineered the inheritance. That's civil, the officer said. Unless he was involved in the tampering. Douglas smiled and produced a document. Correct. I didn't touch the car. I just watched. He held it up. But this is the law. Power of attorney for child care. Signed by Madison. 3 weeks old. If Madison is incarcerated, Douglas said smoothly, custody of Lily transfers to me. My blood ran cold. Drop the charges, he whispered. Or your niece disappears into my care. I looked at Lily's mother in cuffs. Then at Douglas holding paper stronger than a gun. Fine, I said loudly. You win. Keep the company. Keep the child. I only want the dog. He laughed, then ordered the transfer executed. $100 million. Signed. It's done, he said. I own everything. Yes, I replied, dropping a black binder at his feet. You do. The environmental audit. 20 years of toxic leakage. EPA judgment finalized that morning. The fine is $150 million, I said. Unlimited personal liability. Congratulations. His face went gray. And since you're bankrupt and facing federal charges, I added, turning to the trooper, I doubt you're fit to be a guardian. The cuffs snapped shut. I clipped the leash onto the old golden retriever. Let's go home. The Blackwood Empire didn't fall. It was liquidated. Assets seized. Titles erased. They lost everything because they never read the fine print. What they missed was grandfather's final move, a separate trust. $500,000. For the dog. Untouchable. 3 months later I bought the manor for almost nothing. Yesterday I burned the old portrait in the fireplace. Cynthia and Robert's painted smiles turned to ash. Lily sat on the rug, coloring. Safe. Free. The storm had passed. They tried to bury me in this house. Now I'm the only one holding the keys.